Hello and welcome to the Scientific Adventures of Beardman. Today we're going to be looking at a concept builder on physicsclassroom.com under the topic of measurements in units titled metric conversions. The basic idea of this is we're going to be changing from one unit to another. So remember, we've already looked at our different metric prefixes here. The three that we have focused on so far are kilo, centi, and milli. And those are the ones you'll be using in the apprentice and the master level. We'll talk about ones that get added in the wizard level when we get to that point. Okay, but so the basic idea of this is like if I tell you how many kilograms something, how much mass something has in kilograms, you could convert that to tell me how many grams it has, how many centigrams, and how many milligrams. So that's where we're headed. I want to start with the concept of converting from one unit to another with water. So if we take a look at this and we see the question here is one swimming pool is how many cups of water? Well, this is the concept that I really want you to get. That we know that a swimming pool is a bigger unit than a cup of water, right? A swimming pool holds a whole lot of water. A cup holds a little bit comparatively. Okay, so this is a bigger unit. This is a smaller unit. When you're going from a bigger unit to a smaller unit, you're going to need more of that smaller unit, right? We all know it's going to take a whole lot of cups of water to equal a swimming pool. Notice they go off the screen there because it's more than even the ones I've got here. But we get that idea that because the swimming pool is a big unit, when we go to smaller units, we're going to need more of them. 1,000, 10,000. I don't know how many cups of water there are in a swimming pool, but you get the idea. It's a lot. Okay. On the other hand, if we say 1 cup of water is equal to how many swimming pools, well, cup of water is a small unit. Swimming pools is a big unit. So we're going to need less numbers here. If we have 1 cup of water, it's going to be a very small fraction of the swimming pool. It's not even going to fill up that much. It's going to be pretty much empty. It's going to be like 0.001 swimming pools. Okay, so a cup of water, because that's a smaller unit, when we go to a bigger unit, we need to have less of them. Okay, so that's the idea I want to make sure you kind of get as we go through to the next levels. If you've got a big unit and you're going to a small unit, there should be a lot more of them. If you've got a small unit and you're going to a big unit, then there's going to be a much smaller amount of them. Okay? All right, let's get to the first level, apprentice level. So first of all, you'll see that this is what it looks like on all 3 levels. It'll give you the question up here and in graphic form, give you a certain amount that you know, and it'll tell you the units it wants you to give the answer in. Then it's got 2 ways you're going to answer. One is by moving the decimal point. We'll talk about a way to do that first and a way to do that second, as I give you 2 different methods to use. But moving the decimal point is when you multiply by 10, you move the decimal point once for each 0 in your number you multiply. And when you divide by an order of 10, you make it smaller and you go this direction. We'll get to more of that in a moment. The other way that is going to show you is it says on a calculator, this conversion would involve and then either multiplying or dividing by a number like 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000, etc. Okay, so the apprentice level has units with a prefix changing into the base unit or the base unit changing into something with prefixes. So the first way I'm going to show you how to do this, I believe, is the clearest mathematical approach to help you understand what's going on mathematically. The next one is, you could say, a shortcut. It helps you get there quicker without necessarily going through all that rigmarole. So let's use the same system that we used in the first video on metric system. We take 8.2, and then instead of writing milla, we know milla means 1/1000th. Okay, liters. So all we did here was we replaced we replaced milli with the meaning of milli, which is 1 over 1,000. Okay, just as a reminder, since I don't have this on the page here, here is where you'd find that. So milli means 10 to the negative third, which is 1 over 1,000, or 0.001. You could write times 0.001 instead of divided by 1,000. But I choose to write it as the 1 over 1,000. All right, let's click back to the slide we were on. All right. So then if you do the math, you plug this into your calculator, you plug in 8.2 divided by 1,000, because the 1,000 is in the denominator, you get 0.0082 liters. Now, you didn't actually have to do that in this concept builder. What you needed to do was put, notice we got the number in the denominator here, so you'd say divided by 1,000. Okay, and then what did we do to divide by 1,000? Well, you put in your calculator and you saw this answer, so you can just move it over 3 times. The reason we moved it was we were dividing by something with 3 zeros. Since we were dividing, we're going to make the number smaller, and we make the number smaller by moving to the left. Okay, so you tap on this arrow 3 times, and that'll move the decimal point over 3 times. All right, so when you start with the prefix, that's what we covered in the first video on metric system. Now, I want to take a look at what happens when you go from the base unit to the one with the prefix, okay? And how to think of that mathematically, and then you'll probably end up using the shortcut that I'll get to in just a moment. But it's really important, I think, that you understand the concept here. So we start with 4.2 grams, right? But we want to get to centi. Well, centi is 1 over 100. Well, if we don't want to change the value of this, 4.2, you can always multiply something by 1. I'm going to multiply it by 1 in a very peculiar way. I'm going to multiply it by 100 over 100. That's 1. Okay? But notice that I did it in a way where now we have a divided by 100, which means centi. So this part here, the 1 over 100, is going to become the centi. Okay? So I've got 4.2, and then the 1 over 100 becomes the centi, and I'm left with the times 100. Okay? So it's a little bit of a convoluted way to get there, but we wanted to get a centi, so we had to have an over 100, and then we used that over 100 and turned it into a centi. And this 100 that was on top just stayed there. Once again, remember, we did 100 over 100 because if we did anything else, we would have changed the amount. But here we did 100 over 100, that's 1. It doesn't change the amount. All we're changing is the units. Okay, so now 42 times 100, plug that into our calculator, and we get 420 centigrams. Okay, let's talk about how we'd plug that in. Once again, we'd plug in, since we're multiplying, we'd plug in multiply, and we'd plug in 100 because we multiplied by 100. And since we were getting bigger, that meant that we needed to move the decimal place to the right. Because we had 2 zeros here, we moved to the right twice. Okay, so 4.2 became 420 centigrams. All right. I do want to point out one other thing that we talked about just a moment ago, and that was that because we were going from a small unit, a milliliter, to a bigger unit, a liter, when you go from a small unit to a big unit, that means you need less of them. Notice how we have a smaller number here. Okay, 8.2 turned into 0.0082. Here we went from a unit to a smaller unit. Centi means 1/100th, so it's a small unit. So we went from a big unit to a small unit. And so if we're going to have a smaller unit, that means we need more of them. So the 4.2 turned into 420. It's always good at the end to go back and double check and make sure if you're going from a smaller to bigger that the number got smaller. If you're going from a bigger to a smaller that the number got bigger. All right, and I wanted to do one with a thing that wasn't a fraction here because this was 1/1000th, this was 1/100th. So let's do one that's just 100. So we do 6.1, and then we know we need a kilo, and a kilo is 1,000. So because we can't change the number, we have to also divide by 1,000 meters. And now we're going to take the 1,000 and turn that into the kilo. Okay, so 6.1. The 1,000 in the numerator becomes the kilometer. Okay, and we still have the divided by 1,000. Okay, so we end up dividing by 1,000, which on our calculator gives us 0.0061 kilometers. We plug in down here. We were multiplying by the fraction, okay? And so we would put divided by 1,000, and we're getting smaller, so the decimal point would go to the right, would click over to the right, and it goes 1, 2, 3, because there are 3 zeros. All right, so that is the understanding way of doing it. Now, if you click the Help Me in the concept builder, you will see the following. Let me clear the screen here. You'll see the following. It's a nice little, nope. Let's clear screen again. There we go. You'll see this following, the staircase model. Okay, so each of these symbols, and we didn't do all of these, but you still have to kind of go through them, is a factor of 10. Deca is a unit that's 10 times bigger than the base unit. So if you're going from the base unit to deca, you would divide by 10. So you just count up. If you're going from milli to kilo, you count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that means you divide by 10 6 times, which is like a 1 with 6 zeros, which is a million. So that'd be dividing by a million to go from milli to kilo. Okay? If you had 1,000,000 millimeters, that would be 1 kilometer. Divide by a million. And same thing if you're going the other direction. If you're going to smaller units, then you'd multiply by 10 each step you take. Okay? And so that you would figure out the number of times you'd move the decimal. I'm going to move the decimal to the left. 1, 2, 3. And then if you move it to the left 3, that's like dividing by 1,000. Okay, so feel free to use that shortcut. We'll use that shortcut in the next slide. Okay, so here we want to go from milli to kilo. Okay, so milli is down here. We want to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so we're going to go, let's write it as 6 steps. Or you could say divided by 10 6 times. Okay, so we're going to get a smaller number. So divided by 10 6 times is like dividing by this with 6 zeros. Okay, because we went 6 steps on our little chart. And so you would put we just did it. Divided by 1,000,000 would go right here and here. And since you're getting to a smaller number, you're going to need to move the decimal point to the side here 6 times. Did I do that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you would get, let's do it with the 8 here. Move it 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'd fill in zeros past as it goes past each one. And our decimal would be now over here. So 0.0000082. Remember, the decimal's not here anymore. It moved over there. All right, so we'd move the decimal 6 places to the left. We'd click over here on this button 6 times, and we would get our answer. All right, same thing if we're going the other direction from kilogram to centigram. I'm going to have to clear the screen, aren't I? Yeah, that's a little, that's not the direction I want to go that way. And that's a little hard to read. So let's clear the screen here. Okay, so we are now going from, and I forgot where we're going from. We're going from kilo to centi. So we start up here at kilo. We go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that lands us at centi. Okay, each one is times 10. So 5 times, we're going to times 10. So let's write that down. Times 10, 5 times. Okay, so each time adds a 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and so that's what you'd write here. Times or multiply, and then you'd have your 5 zeros or 100,000. Squeeze one in there. All right, and if we're getting bigger, that means that we're going to have to move the decimal point to the, I'll do my work here. We're going to have to move to the right to make our number bigger. 2, 3, 4, 5. And so we'll add zeros here. And so we'd get 420,000 as the decimal ends up over here. All right, let's move on to our final level. And there we go. So back to the prefixes. Now we are going to add 2 prefixes. We are going to add, oh, there we go. Okay, we're going to add micro and nano. So you'll see micro and nano. So notice that's not, these went one step, right? We went from the base unit to 10 to the negative 1, 10 to the negative 2, 10 to the negative 3. Now we're jumping to 10 to the negative 6 and 10 to the negative 9. Physics Classroom has a nice chart to help us through this. I like this because it's got the 10 to the negative 4th and 10 to the negative 5th written in there. So even though we don't have names for those, you can still count them as steps. So notice when converting a unit located on the left, move the decimal point to the right. So if you're going to smaller numbers, then your number should get bigger. You're moving the decimal to the right. And if you're converting to a unit on the right, you're going this direction, okay? Then you're going to get smaller, and so you move the decimal point to the left. It's just flippy-floppy. If you're moving to a decimal over here, you move the decimal point to the right. If you're moving to the right, you move the decimal to the left. Let's put that into practice. So here we have changing from milliliters to nanoliters, okay? Nano, yes. So milli is here. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We went 6 to the left. That means the decimal point's going to go 6 to the right. Okay, so we get our 8.2, and we move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we see that 820,000, 8,200,000, 6 places, is nanoliters, those very tiny nanoliters. It takes 8,200,000 nanoliters to equal 8.2 milliliters. They must be incredibly small. All right, let's clear that and jump back to the and get ready to do this next one. So now we see micro, this Greek letter mu, looks mostly like a U. So 4.2 micrograms to kilograms. So micrograms is here, kilograms is here. So we have to go to the right. Whoops. We have to go to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have to go 9 places to the right. So that means we're going to move the decimal point to the left. So 4.2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so we got a whole lot of zeros here because this is going to be a very small number of kilograms, small amount of kilograms. We got 0.0. What do I have there? 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like I got 8 zeros. Okay, so we divided by a 1 with 9 zeros. So in here it would be divided by, and then a 1 with 9 zeros. I'm not going to have room for them all, but make sure you've got 9 there. 1, 2, 3, 6. I'd better squeeze them in. 7, 8, 9. There we go. So we divide by a billion. That's a 1 with 9 zeros. Or move the decimal point 9 to the left like we did. All right. I hope you enjoyed learning with us here. I hope you're able to puzzle out those conversions. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, click that like or subscribe button, and we'll see you the next time on the Scientific Adventures of Beer.